Hello everyone, welcome to Aitareya Institute and our daily current affairs series. I am Aditya Singh, and in this series, as we have already said this, we are going beyond the headlines to understand the the concepts, the context, and the contextual understanding. We'll also be looking through the constitutional, geographical, and economical perspectives. We are covering environmental and even international dimensions of every important issue. So our objective here is to connect the current affairs with the static syllabus, with the previous year questions, and moreover with the evolving demands of the UPSC Civil Services exam. So without any further delay, let's begin today's current affairs discussion. So the this is a very important topic that we'll be discussing first. The Bab al-Mandeb Strait. Okay, and this strait is also referred as the Gate of Tears. Okay, Gate of Tears. So what it is, as you can see in the map also. So this is also part of the mapping session. So it is a narrow strategic maritime passage. It's a maritime passage. What does it connect? So if you have any question around the strait, so first question, or whenever you're reading about strait, first you have to understand that which two seas are being connected by the strait. So you have the Red Sea, which is in the northwest, and the Gulf of Aden and the Indian Ocean in the southeast. You know? So the southern gateway to the Suez Canal, forming the shortest sea routes. This is the shortest sea routes between Europe, North Africa, and Asia. So as you can see this is quite visible over here. This is your Bab al-Mandeb Strait. Okay, so this is connecting your Red Sea, and this is your Gulf of Aden. Okay, so this is being connected by your Bab al-Mandeb, and this is your Suez Canal. Very important. Please do remember, where is Suez Canal? Associated with Egypt. Okay, this is associated with Egypt, and yes, you also have one here, Sumed pipeline. Okay, so along with this, and you need to have a regional holistical perspective around things. So this you can only do so through looking into maps consistently, and so that you are able to develop a regional consciousness around it. Okay, so first is it is a narrow strategic maritime passage connecting Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Okay, so this is becomes your shortest route through your Suez Canal. So why is this in news? Why is the Bab al-Mandeb in news? Okay, why the Gate of Tear is in news? So Yemen's Houthi rebels, the Houthi rebels of Yemen. So where is Yemen? Okay, so this is your Yemen. So here you have Houthi rebels. Okay, they announced a targeted naval embargo on Saudi Arabia through the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, threatening to block oil tankers transiting the Red Sea. So all the tankers which are coming from Saudi Arabia through the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, all these oil tankers will be witnessing a naval embargo by the Yemen's Houthi rebels. Okay, so this is why this was in news. So now, what are the bordering nations? You have Yemen, as you can see, then you have Djibouti and Eritrea. So you have your Djibouti, and not just Djibouti but Eritrea. But main two are your Yemen and Djibouti. Okay, situated between the Arabian Peninsula and Horn of Africa. So this is your Horn of Africa. Okay, so you need to remember this Horn of Africa. What are the nations associated with Horn of Africa? So these are Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Djibouti. Okay, I'll be giving you a mnemonic for this seed. Okay, just remember seed and look in the map. You'll be very easily able to remember what all nations are entailed under Horn of Africa. Okay, so this is like a horn. This is why this termed as Horn of Africa, and these are the nations which are associated with the Horn of Africa. Now, if we talk about the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, so it is approximately 32 kilometers, 20 miles at its narrowest point between Ras Manheli, which is Yemen, and Ras Yan, which is between Djibouti. Okay, you don't need to remember the exact width of it, that is okay. You have Perim Island Division. Perim Island Division. Now this is divided between volcanic Perim, Mayun Island in the Western Channel, okay, and the Eastern Channel. So you have, just remember this, you have Perim Island Division and that is it, okay. And you can use this context in your mains answers, and beyond this, the news will not be asked in your prelims, okay. But you need to understand that a dedicated prelims question based on mapping could be asked on Babel-Mandev Strait. So this is why you need to see the map, and this is why I have attached the map specifically for you. Okay, moving ahead. So what is the strategic significance? First of all, what is the strategic significance and global impact? If we talk about it acts as a global trade choke point. Okay, to choke point, we have already discussed this. What is a choke point? Okay, since it is a strait and it is of strategic significance. It is termed as a choke point. Simple. So it carries around 10 to 12% of global seaborne trade and about 10% of seaborne oil trade. Okay. The third busiest energy choke point after Malacca and Hormuz. So Malacca, everyone knows where is Malacca. Hormuz has always been in news. We have already discussed and covered this in news. Okay, associated because of the ongoing Iran-US conflict, even Israel. So Hormuz has always been in news. Malacca, uh, because it is associated with Southeast Asia. Okay, and a lot of oil trade associated with China goes through Malacca. So this is why China is also going through a number of alternate measures in order to circumvent this Malacca Strait. That will be covering it separately when the news article comes up. Cost of closure. So closure forces the ships to detour via the Cape of Good Hope. Okay, the Cape of Good Hope. This is what was undertaken by the British East India Company. Okay, British East India Company. So similarly, if this route is closed, they will be similarly again forced to move through the Cape of Good Hope, which will add further 3,500 to 4,000 nautical miles and 10 to 14 extra days. Now this will significantly increase the amount of fuel consumption, the cost of insurance, as well as the freight cost. The freight cost is the cost of carrying through the ship. So all this will overall increase the price of crude oil. And if the prices are increased, not only crude oil but also trade, all this will be all this will lead to global inflation. Okay, all this will lead to global inflation. Okay, so this is the impact of such a closure. Now talking about the hydrographic features. So features seasonal current reversals driven by monsoon winds. And a monsoon, as you know, what is monsoon? Monsoon is simply seasonal reversal of winds. Okay, so this is what is witnessed. Features seasonal current reversal driven by monsoon winds. Now this is dotted with volcanic archipelago, including the Seven Brothers, which is also referred as the Sawabi Islands. Now this is near Djibouti's coast. The Seven Brothers or the Sawabi Island. This is near Djibouti's coast. Okay, you can have a look into the map. Okay. Apart from this, the Red Sea has already been asked in your prelims. There is a possibility that again, since this has been in news, so this could be again asked. Okay, I think 2 or 3 years back, the Red Sea was being asked. Now, talking about the geopolitical risk, the Houthi rebel activity in Yemen makes this strait a high geopolitical flashpoint with the direct implications for global energy security. Now, energy security becomes very pertinent if such move is actually undertaken and implemented by the Houthi rebels. Not only just the energy security, as we have already discussed, India's exports will also be impacted heavily, and your regional trade routes, all this will get impacted. So these are the major consequences of the control or the closure of the state of Bab el-Mandeb. Okay. Next news article is also very important. Very, very actually important. Uh, the global mining. The global mining and metals. Now, the mining industry has led to water distress. Okay, water distress across the globe. Okay, so if we talk about International Council on Mining and Metals, ICMM, so it undertook the first comprehensive cross commodity global water risk analysis. For which sector? For the mining sector. Okay, specifically the target is mining sector. So it is highly unlikely the question would be asked on prelims from this news article, but from the point of view of means, a lot of value added material could be extracted from it. Okay, so especially in both the aspects, in water and in the mining. And a more prominent question is associated with water. So question if at all it comes on water, then an additional advantage you have vis-a-vis you are if you are providing certain data around the mining sector, then that will become very enriched. Your answer will become very enriched. And if question on mining sector arises, then certainly you have to include this point. Okay. So if you talk about the scope, overlays point location data from 12,000 mining and metal facilities across 148 countries on regions with primary water risk data sets have been taken. You don't need to remember this. You just have to remember that who undertook this survey, which is ICMM, which is International Council on Mining and Metals. So you don't need to remember exactly the scope. Now, if we talk about the core finding, this is what you actually need to include in your mains answers. So, nearly two-thirds of the global mining and metals processing facilities are facing high water risk, high physical water risk, and immediate operational threat. So it is an immediate threat and not a distant threat. This is very immediate threat, and you need to address it, immediately. What is the purpose? So purpose is developed to enable the mining sectors. Okay, enable the mining sector, governments as well as the investors to do what? To identify, to quantify and act on facility level water hazard exposure at global scale. So all these stakeholders, these are all your stakeholders. Okay. The mining sector as a whole, the government which is involved in policy creation, policy implementation, and investors. Okay. All these three stakeholders need to identify first and foremost thing is to identify what is the hazard. Second is to quantify. Okay, this is the major risk that is present. And third is to act upon that quantifiable risk in order to mitigate it and focus upon sustainable development. So this should be the idea behind this, to achieve the sustainable development and focus on the sustainable development goals which need to be achieved by 2030. And in the previous sessions also we have I've already stated this and said this to you to please read all the SDGs, not only from the point of view of prelims but also from the point of view of mains, as to how you can conclude your answers effectively and quickly through SDGs. Okay. So now if we talk about, this is your North America, it is at 23% higher risk. South America, very, very high. But the most important thing here is Africa. You need to remember how Africa is getting exploited on account of its mining and metal industry. Okay. Eurasia and Europe, not to say they are not impacted, but major impact is associated with Asia and more so by Africa. Okay, even Oceania has a high level of impact, but these two regions are the dominant regions. Okay, where you are witnessing the maximum impact, maximum hazard of water on account of the global mining and metal sector. Okay, even in India, you need to remember about the National Critical Mineral Mission. You need to read more about this. So this is also associated with an immediate physical water risk. Okay, your national critical mineral mission. Okay, so it focuses on around 30 minerals. 30 minerals. These are identified by Ministry of Mines. Mines. And out of these, 24 minerals are part of, let's say, Part D of Schedule 1 of MMDR Act. Very, very important act. MMDR Act. Mine and Minerals Development and Regulation Act, giving the central government exclusive auction authority. So under this act, who has the exclusive auction authority? Exclusive auction authority. Now that goes to the central government. This goes towards the central government. Okay. And some of the critical minerals you have to remember, like you have antimony, you have beryllium, you have bismuth. Moreover, some of the more important ones are cobalt. Cobalt is very, very, very important. A dedicated thing you have to remember about cobalt. Where all is the cobalt production happening? Okay. You have copper, very, very important. Copper. Along with that, you have also gallium, है ना? Germanium, graphite, hafnium, indium, lithium, molybdenum. So a lot of these minerals, these 30 minerals you have to remember, will create a separate session on all these 30 minerals and help you prioritize as to which minerals are more important, which minerals have already been asked, and which minerals could be asked. So uh, if you talk about prelims, most of the if you have looked towards the PYQs, you would have witnessed one thing, that just like other topics which are being asked, the around 1 to 2 questions every year it is asked from the minerals. Every year there are at least 1 or 2 questions, okay, which makes this topic extremely important. Okay, so you have these different critical minerals, your germanium, graphite, hafnium, titanium. Okay, so multiple key focus areas, including the electric vehicles. You have your energy storage, like using your lithium, nickel, and cobalt for high capacity batteries. You have clean energy uh, clean energy application vis-a-vis different critical minerals like your silicon, tellurium, tellurium. You have your indium, gallium. Gallium is actually used for your solar PV cells. Along with that, you have your neodymium. You have your dysprosium. Dysprosium is used in wind turbine magnets. Okay. Along with that, you have high tech and defense applications. Like you have your titanium, you have your tungsten, and different rare earth elements for the electronics and aerospace. So all these critical minerals will be covering up separately. Okay. So now, what all the survey entails? If we talk about the survey, so 38% of facilities operate in high or extremely high water stressed or arid catchments, and 27% face high baseline water depletion. Okay, drought hotspots. So this was your baseline water stress. If we talk about drought hotspots. So 27% of global sites face very high drought risk. For instance, you have your Africa and Middle East. 81% of your drought hotspots are associated with Africa and Middle East. Some of the important nations which are facing this are Zambia, Ghana, Uzbekistan. Okay, there you have almost 100% exposure, whereas South Africa you have 96% exposure. So you can use this. Okay, flood risk in refining. Okay, so global average is 14%, but steel production, there you have more risk, 27%. In alumina refining you have 27%, aluminum smelting 24%. Now they face far higher hazards in terms of the flood risk while refining. You don't need to remember the percentages. You just have to remember these different sectors, these different areas where the flood risk is very high in refining. If we talk about compound risk, so you have 5% of facilities face the 3 plus simultaneously high risk indicators which are concentrated in Chile, Peru, Southern Africa, Central India, and Western Australia. So compounded risk, not just singular risk, but multiple risks together, which increase the overall risk hazard. So critical minerals, you have your platinum group elements. There you have 74% drought risk, platinum group elements. Okay. Manganese, you have 21% compound risk. Copper, okay, 9% compound risk. Chile, 86% of facilities face dual water stress and variability. Okay, so here also you don't need to remember the percentages as such, but you need to remember these key elements, that platinum group elements face extremely high drought risk. Okay, so what are the implications, what are the recommendations, both the aspects? Okay, so first is your clean energy threat. So if you have water shortages, now that can lead to supply bottlenecks for which all minerals like your copper, you have a lithium, nickel and rare earth. Now all this, if the production is slowed down, that will lead to slowing solar, wind and EV battery production. So water shortages are impacting the supply bottlenecks of these elements, and these elements, if they are impacted, these will impact the solar sector, will impact the wind sector and EV battery production. So overall, multiple set of impacts and challenges. Next implication is price volatility. So if you have droughts, now that will force halts, okay, and floods, which will destroy the infrastructure. Now this all will lead to production losses and global metal price spikes. Okay, so this will lead to global metal price spikes. So this is overall how you are associating it with price volatility. Third is your social conflict. Why social conflict? Because there will be competition over water, especially in the stretched catchment. Now, this will intensify the conflict between the mining firms. Okay, the conflict will be associated with the mining firms, the farmers, as well as your rural communities as to who would want to have that greater share of water in order for their own purpose. Because mining firms will also need water. Okay, let's say for refining. Okay, your farmers will require water for agriculture sector, and rural communities obviously for their basic needs. So all this will lead to social conflicts. Okay, so what are the recommendations? First recommendation is adopt catchment based stewardship. Very, very good example. And suggestions. So shift from site level to collaborative catchment scale water management frameworks. Okay. Second is, and see, here the idea is collaborative. Why collaborate? The idea is stewardship. What it will lead to? It will lead to creation of a sense of ownership. Sense of ownership. If the communities are thinking in terms of that they are having that ownership, then they will be associated more with the management of such water areas, okay, such water resource along with the industry also. So this is a very sustainable way of approaching and going about things. Second is alternative water technologies. So scaling up closed loop recycling and seawater use. Okay, so this is another suggestion. Instead of using fresh water from rivers, okay, instead of using fresh water, what you can use is recycle the seawater. For instance, you have Chile's Minera Centinela. Okay, so Chile, they have been doing this for mining and other purposes. Use seawater instead of fresh water and keep the fresh water for, let's say, agricultural activities, or let's say for rural communities. Last suggestion is regulate before concession. So who will regulate? Regulation is always generally associated with government. So government must set water allocation priorities and environmental flow thresholds before issuing new licenses in high stress basins. So first you need to identify those high stress basins, and you need to create certain environmental thresholds before issuing any mining licenses in those high stressed areas. Okay, so this is how the government can regulate and push and provide the impetus towards a sustainable form of development. Moving forward, now this is a very important news article. Women's participation. Women's participation, women's work participation in India. So what is the context? India's goal of becoming a developed nation, which is Vikasit Bharat. The idea was encouraged by Prime Minister Modi. Now this cannot be achieved without structurally increasing women's formal work participation. And it is according to there was a Niti Aayog report which said that we require at least 55% of female labor force participation rate. This is the basic thing that is needed, at least this, in order to move towards the agenda of Vikasit Bharat. So, uh, regular periodic survey are being conducted under PLFS, a periodic labor force survey. So, according to the latest PLFS survey, the India's LFPR, FL, female labor force participation rate now today stands at around 41.7%. I know you can remember just 41%. Now this has increased from 23% in 2017 when the periodic labor force survey was initiated. So from 23%, a good effort. So that needs to be cherished, that needs to be appreciated. That from 23%, now today the female labor force participation rate that has increased to 41%. So U-shaped WPR, and the agenda is to further increase it to 55%. Okay. So U-shaped women participation rate, female work participation rate declined as rural women exited manual agriculture without being absorbed into formal non-farm or manufacturing zone. So at one point of time, at one instance, the labor force participation rate is increasing, but on the other hand, the work participation rate, especially in terms of the rural women, that is reducing. Why? Because multiple reasons, will be coming to that later. Okay, GDP multiplier. Why is this so important? Now, use this in your means. A 10% point rise in female WPR could add 2 percentage points directly to national GDP growth. Or, must include point in mains. Very, very important. It will make your answers extremely different. So, in mains, if we talk about in society and in women's question, use this point. Even in essays, okay. So rising inactivity. Young women aged 15 are neither working nor in education. Grew from 70 million, which is pre 2004, to over 100 million. So almost 10 crore women. 10 crore women are neither working nor are having any education. Education growth. So both these aspects. Now this is very worrisome issue. So distress-driven farm re-entry. So post 2020, a rise in female participation was largely why? Because of unpaid family labor in agriculture. This was driven by rural economic distress and not genuine empowerment. So why? Because they entered in the agriculture sector again after the 2020 COVID-19 crisis. Okay. Along with that, this point, north-south disparity. So Tamil Nadu, which is roughly 5 to 6% of the national population, this hosts what? 40% of India's female factory workforce. Very, very important point. 40% of India's female factory workforce due to the government, electronics, and hostel infrastructure. Okay, so this is the level of the north-south disparity. Moving forward, so what are the reasons, significance, and way forward? So what are the reasons for low and distress-driven participation? Capital intensive growth, whatever we are witnessing. that is not labor intensive, that is capital intensive. So if you talk about the GDP growth, now that is concentrated in high skill sectors. High skill sectors like you have your finance, you have your IT sector. Now that did not require large volumes of workers, and this is why a major challenge is you need to focus. You need, because you have such a large workforce, not only on capital intensive, but also you have to focus on labor intensive growth. Okay. Second is decline in labor intensive manufacturing. Again, the same reason. Like you have your textiles, food processing, and garments. Even these sectors, which are labor intensive, saw absolute employment drops between 2013 to 2029. Now, there could be various reasons. These sectors overall, they are facing a bit of a decline. Moreover, these sectors are also undergoing automation. These sectors are also witnessing technology upgradation, which don't require such high amount of labor force. And this is why you are witnessing decline of labor intensive manufacturing. Okay. Third set of reason is mechanization in agriculture. Even this was also one of the reasons. Even in agriculture sector, you have reduced demand for rural manual labor without creating non-farm alternatives for the educated young women. So at one hand, the agriculture sector is getting mechanized, so it requires lesser amount of labor force. And on the other hand, the non-farm alternatives that we've been all talking about since time immemorial, these non-farm alternatives are not being focused upon as much as it is needed today. Okay. Fourth reason is social norms and safety gaps. So you have your entrenched gender expectation, you have lack of safe housing, you have poor transport restrict, you have your poor transport also. This today, even today, you know, every day you can open up the newspaper and you will witness some kind of news around some harassment, sexual harassment that underwent during the transportation. So this is still a major challenge, your transportation safety. Okay. Especially in your formal urban employment. This is why women are hesitant to work late at nights. Okay, that is a thing which is quite worrisome. So all these social norms are associated with the patriarchy which is still very much a reality which is present in India. So if we talk about, so these are the reasons. Okay, you can note down these reasons, very important reasons for your mains. What is the significance? You will witness GDP expansion. As we have said, a 10% increase in work for women work participation rate will lead to 2% increase in GDP. Very, very important. So just by raising the female participation increases the labor supply and expands the economy's productive capacity and the total output. Okay. Next is your intergenerational gains. Very, very important point from your mains point of view. So if you have higher female earnings, now that will improve the child nutrition, that will improve health, that will improve the child's education. So all this is associated with building long-term national human capital. So intergenerational gains, must note down this. Target the labor intensive industries. What are some of the solutions? So direct the policy supports to which sectors? You have garments, footwear, food processing, also a labor intensive sector. You have light electronics industry, electronics assembly. Replicate Tamil Nadu's model. You must note down these Tamil Nadu models separately. Okay, what have they focused upon? They have focused upon women hostels. They're focused upon female literacy and safe transport networks across the Hindi belt. Okay, so this has been already done in Tamil Nadu and you need to replicate it in the Hindi belt. Okay. Third suggestion would be transition from unpaid agriculture. So what you need to create is formal non-farm. Okay, this is what we have been talking about, non-farm wage opportunities to shift the rural women out of the unremunerated family farm labor. And this is how you would be effectively able to empower the female workforce. Okay, by providing financial autonomy. Okay, if the woman has a financial autonomy, then essentially she would be better able to participate in the decision making processes in her family. And if she is able to participate effectively in the decision making processes in her family, in her society, in her community, then all kinds of patriarchal norms that are prevalent in the society, that will gradually start to fall down. Okay, so this is the step by step procedure. Moving forward, now this is also another important news. Punjab. Why has Punjab been in news? So Punjab is the first state. Now, since it is the first state, you need to remember this. This is the first state to introduce AI as mainstream school subject. Mainstream. Okay. So here you have Punjab launched the Sarbat AI. Okay, the Sarbat AI, India's first statewide program to make artificial intelligence a mainstream school subject right from class 1 to class 12. So since from the beginning they are inculcating and including the artificial intelligence. So this is very very important, because this is how you will be able to provide them with the skills necessary to get absorbed in the mainstream industry. Okay, so aim is to build an AI literate, innovation driven, and ethically responsible student community with equitable access to AI education, preparing learners for future digital economy. So you cannot wish away that now AI will not be, we won't be using AI. That is not an option at all. Okay, the genie is out of the box, and now you have to navigate around it, and you have to learn this skill. This is very very important skill, and even I would suggest you take some time, take certain courses on AI and even machine learning. Okay, uh, all that will also help in your plan B in your civil services, and not relying entirely. So you need to regularly upskill yourself. So it will be roll out. It will be rolled out in phased manner, and firstly covering classes 8th to 12th through computer science curriculum, then classes 1 to 7th with age appropriate AI education. Now, global curriculum standards designed using best practices from Singapore, Finland, UAE, and US aligned with UNESCO's ethical AI framework. Okay, so first is this news that is important from prelims point of view, and you can use this in mains. Second, this you need to remember this UNESCO's ethical AI framework. Use this in your mains answers. Okay, so this will benefit 25,000 schools and 30 lakh students, and 12,000 computer science teachers initially will be trained, and 2 lakh teachers progressively will be upskilled. Okay, so this is why Prime Minister Modi ji has been regularly focusing on skilling, reskilling, and upskilling. Okay, so what are the key features? Okay, so very basic thing, it is technology driven learning. How come technology driven learning? It will use online classes, recorded lectures, and project based learning, continuous assessment, and dedicated learning management system. So all this is proves that you have technology driven learning. Second is inclusive access. Inclusive access as in you are providing an equitable AI education. Equitable. How so equitable? Because you are focusing not only on urban but also on rural schools. Okay, this is how you'll be able to bridge the digital divide. Must include this point. Okay, inclusivity. A dedicated various many times questions on inclusivity has been asked. So linking AI with inclusivity, a question can be easily asked. But how will you do that? For this, you would require, first of all, you need to upskill the teacher. Okay, without first training or upskilling the teacher, you cannot hope or expect that you can provide that skill to the students. So, large scale capacity building measures ensure teachers are progressively trained to deliver curriculum effectively across all grade levels, right from class 1. For that, you would first need to upskill the teacher themselves. Okay, so all this will provide a future ready workforce. So for the future, a skill which is must is your AI. So in order for your current generation to be future ready, you need to train them. You need to equip the students with AI, with entrepreneurship, along with providing them the necessary digital skills which are required for emerging knowledge economy. So use this thing, knowledge economy. So the future generation is about knowledge economy. Use this in your essays also. So you have your national leadership. So this positions Punjab as a pioneer of AI-enabled school education at a national level. So where could this be asked? है ना? Directly could be asked, or you can use this in your JS paper too. Your government policies and education, digital India and human resource development, a GS paper 3. If at all a question on artificial intelligence or innovation technology, your innovation, digital economy or skill development. If question arises, then also you can include the points from this news article. So I've also provided you where all can you use this. Okay. So I hope you liked today's discussion. If you have any doubt, please do mention it in the comment section, and we'll be covering up the next set of things in the next session. Okay. If you have any doubt, please do mention it in the comment section. Thank you.